Okay, it's live stream now.
There we
Okay.
go.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Daryl. I'm president so far. To our November general meeting. I posted immediately into the chat our prize form site link, so everyone, while they get a chance, can go sign up for door prizes that we do at the end. Are there new members here?
Look at all the stuff
Any
you
new
got.
members? Show hands and tell us a little about you. Terry, how are you? Oh, yeah, I saw you at Darby. How are you?
Yeah, not bad for an old man. I can't complain. Another day older and even deeper in debt, but what the heck.
So how did you find us?
Well, my father came out to Los Angeles in 1952, and there was a big meeting going on up at Wilson, and I went. I've just been away for a while.
Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other new members
The
here
link is
tonight?
not. The link is not up, Daryl. Just so you know, for the prizes
The link is not up in the
No.
chat.
in the chat, it's not there.
Let me see
How
what
do
I
you
did.
send How do you send a message on this chat anyway? Carriage return or what?
How about now? There it goes.
Mei Jiang Chung claims she is a newish member, but she's not chiming in.
I had my hand up. I was waiting my turn.
Oh, jump in.
Hi, everyone. My name sounds like me, Kyung. I joined a couple of months ago because I attended the Women in Astronomy talk at Mount Wilson and met a number of your members. And I had just recently gotten my Celestron set up. And I was like, oh, I would love to do this in community. I shoot a lot of nighttime photography as well as a hobby. My daytime job is working for a lot of nonprofit organizations who do environmental justice and racial justice work. So that's what I do in my daytime. But I've been wanting to join the meetings. It's been a little crazy the last couple of months, but I'm happy to be here with you all this evening. And I know I met some of you at the Griffith. I think it was Star Party that happened a couple of months ago. But I hope to meet each of you.
Great. Well, welcome to the club. Glad you're here. Okay.
I'm new as well. Hi, everyone.
Hey, George.
Hi, I'm George Azar. I got introduced to the club through the Astronomy magazine, and I am so excited to be here. I actually haven't been out to meet everybody yet, and I'm looking forward to doing that soon. I am a CPA by trade, have my own business as of this year, and just trying to branch out and meet new people and just that share in my love and interest in astronomy.
Fantastic.
Welcome aboard.
Any other hands up? I don't see your hand up.
Yeah. Hi,
Oh, there you go.
my name's David. I'm new to the club. I signed up about a month ago, I guess. So I think Daryl called me and basically said your membership is valid now. So I guess I'm trying to get involved. I was into sort of stargazing with my telescope that I bought back in 1999. It was I have a Meade classic LX200 classic 10-inch, and so I haven't used it for many years, but it's I want to get back out there and start to stargaze and use it. So I thought, what a better way to maybe join a club, because most of my friends and family, they're not really into being outside at night in the cold. So I figured I might try to get with some other folks that are into the same thing.
Great. Well, you're in the right place. So I got some background noise from somebody. Who's that? I guess it went away. Okay.
Oh,
Or is it me? No.
I'm
Okay.
guessing
sounds like
there's
a
something in Don's computer that's messing with us. Don, you want to try muting for a moment?
How about Dave? Do you need to? Am I getting some quick?
I think it's coming from you, Daryl, I believe.
yeah,
Okay.
it's definitely you, Daryl. Yeah, it's a feedback or talkback coming. You have something
How
feeding
about
back.
now? Is that better?
There you go. Try it again.
Is that better?
I think it's
No, still there.
Don.
I think your voice is
Still
coming
there.
through somebody else's input.
Okay. All right, for all of the new people who want to meet people, Garvey Ranch Park is the place to go to do that because people meet there every week, every Wednesday. And it's a community gathering. We're open to the public there. People bring their telescopes and show the public the stars and talk to them about it. New members bring their telescopes to learn how to use them better or at all. It's also where if you do not have a telescope, you can go and get one from our loaner program, which is back up and running again. So all of those are good things. Garvey Ranch, just a little bit east of downtown in Monterey Park. So kind of pretty centrally located. I saw Terry there, I think, for the first time last Wednesday, and he was sitting there having a good time talking to everyone. Okay. If there's no other new members that want to say hello, we can kind of quickly go through our, yes?
What about this Ginger?
Hi. Sorry, I'm not able to turn my camera on. I'm actually driving right now. But I wanted to pop on and at least say hi to everyone. So yeah, my name's Ginger. I just moved to LA. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so yeah, I just moved to LA. I'm from San Francisco. I'm part of the Amateur Astronomy's Club up in San Francisco. And really wanted to find a club that I could join down in LA. So I found you guys, and I'm pretty much an amateur astrophotographer. I just got a hold of a star tracker, so I'm kind of messing around with that. And what else do I have to say? I'm also a student at UCLA, a graduate student at UCLA. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to meeting you all soon.
Well, it sounds like you're going to fit right in. A lot of our people do exactly what you're doing. Also, Garvey Ranch Park is also good for that. We're doing a lot of astrophotography from there, and I can learn a lot from a couple of people that are there every Wednesday. Okay. All right, I guess I'd like to quickly go through the committee reports. We're kind of at the end of the year, so there's not a whole lot happening with some of our locations. Curtis, you're here. Ford is just shut down for the rest of the year, yeah, until the spring.
Yeah, well, yeah, the ski area opened over the weekend, and we've got possibly, I don't know if they're skiing at night yet. They'll be at least open on weekends. But if Joe and I decide to open it up for some time, we will let the club know. We're going to do it, but basically it's going to shut down for the season.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if
Thanks.
anything we want to do or anything we plan to do, we'll try to let the club know. And maybe if somebody wants coming up and join it, it's good. It's right now it's 36 degrees up there.
I'll stay here.
Your car may not make it, Daryl.
Yeah, there's snow on the road right now, but it'll probably melt before it.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what winter's going to bring. We just have to wait and see. But the ski area just officially opened last weekend.
All right.
Basically, we're on touch and go, whatever.
Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Garvey, as I said, is next one on the list is open every Wednesday. lot happening there. We just had a really wonderful science night that was very successful. But I don't think there's anything to really update about Garvey. The new mount is in, and we're just back to kind of being open every Wednesday and back to normal again. It feels good. Our members are showing up and happy to show public what's going on. Lockwood, John's not here. Is Kevin here? No Kevin, no John. Okay. Let's see, what's new at Lockwood?
If you want to get technical about Lockwood, Chris has kind of been doing 90% of the work lately.
Chris, do you want to do a quick update on where we stand at Lockwood positively?
Sure. Well, we've been working on the trailer, or not on the trailer itself, it's on the infrastructure. And the electrical conduit's been put in for the heaters, and that's the individual circuits. So each of the heaters, which will be one in the living room area, one in the kitchen area, and also one in the bedroom area, is enough to go ahead and generate pretty good amount of heat. But the con's gone in, so we just need to run the wire, and we're waiting on the circuits to get delivered to go ahead and match the box, the circuit breaker boxes there to fit in those digital spaces. So once those get delivered and the wires run, those heaters will be up and running. From that point, we're still on the recirculation for the water. That will go ahead and provide a real toilet. That will go ahead and provide water for the faucet in the bathroom and also the kitchen. So there'll be water in there. That will be for year use. And it'll have the circulation pumps will go ahead and provide antifreeze protection, if you will, on that. So the other plus on that is that with the real toilet, that'll be really nice to have that in the trailer, because to my knowledge, there's never been one in there. But additionally, the outside bathroom, when you have to go put your foot down on that little pedal to go ahead and fill it up, you have to wait and wait and wait that done. What happens with the new pump that's going on there, which will be a separate pump, is that will accelerate that substantially. So there shouldn't be any reason to have that, hopefully have that pipe clog anymore. So it doesn't have to have a plumber called Al go in there and fix everything. So that should make things a lot easier up there. Again, that'll be a year-round situation where that will keep going. So that's in the works. That's along. I got called on a job work with the LA Phil and New York Opera. So it's kind of knocked me out for a bit. But on the weekends, I'm planning on getting that there and still working on this and getting it done. And so that's the update I have. The other part
Okay,
is,
let me know what you need on the electrical there. You just need to run a wire.
we just got to run a wire, and I can go ahead and go over that with anybody on who wants to do that.
Okay, I got nice fiberglass fish tape. Is the wire there?
Yeah, the wire storage container.
All right.
That's there, ready to go. It's just a matter of how it's supposed to be routed. I can go over that with you.
All right, let's talk about that separate.
Okay. And then
All right,
the last thing on it is just the trailer. I mean, I'm sorry, not the trailer, but the little video you guys just had on the assembly. That looks fantastic.
There's more to come on the video. There was another time lapse from a different angle that was being done, and Richard's going to put that together and send it out, probably on the group's IO with a link to it. Yes, Richard?
Right.
Yeah, my only delay has been unfortunately medical stuff, so I'm a little delayed on my finished product.
We're very patient, don't worry.
Okay.
When it gets there, we'll look at it. How's that?
The observatory is here's my issue. The observatory was 90% complete on Saturday. I am under the impression that John was dealing with weather coverage that night or on Sunday. I don't know, because I did have to leave. Both roofs were placed on top and actually screwed down onto the beams so that they wouldn't blow away.
Okay.
It's physically intact. It was going to be weather protected just so that it, all of our work didn't get killed by the upcoming rains and whatever. And the next step is to replace the garage sliders and the 4x4s.
We don't need all that detail.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in
We
good
got
shape.
stuff in the works that's going to get fixed.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, let's go to Mount Wilson. We have one more 60-inch night on the 19th. It's full, so don't start asking me about making spots. It's been full for a while. Along with that, there is going to be a star party. This is all weather permitting, of course, in the upper parking lot, a public star party that we'll be putting on in the upper parking lot at Mount Wilson that is already beginning to be advertised. So if it goes well and the weather's good, it probably will be another good showing. The last one was quite good. Outside of that night, I don't think there's anything else happening for the rest of the year for us. Tim, is there any other events that are still happening between now and the end of the year that are open?
There isn't anything at Mount Wilson. I was up there today and was kind of confused today, which is why I signed into the meeting late. But there's no other events now until the beginning of the next season. We do have, of course, the public star parties at Griffith, and I have an email from Mark Pine I haven't looked at yet because I jumped on this meeting first. I have to worry about that, but those are in December.
Okay, so we're at the end of the season pretty much everywhere then.
Yeah.
We usually have a scouting report, but that's also over. Outreach, I think we still have a couple of more outreaches. David?
One more in Malibu. Yeah, one more in Malibu coming up next. It's supposed to be, I believe, on Friday. I believe, yes, Friday the 18th.
Next Friday.
Yeah, I have to look at my calendar, but I'll let you know.
Okay.
Tim, did you?
Chris, are we going to have this pop up by then?
I have not yet. It's got confirmation on the ship, but as soon as it's shipped, I'll let you guys know. And it's usually
okay.
It's supposedly it's coming by UPS, so hopefully it'll be pretty quick.
Okay. Are you going to Malibu?
I am planning on Malibu. Yes.
Okay, so then you'll bring it.
If
It's being shipped to you, correctly?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So that's our last outreach then. Okay.
Let me go get the date. I'll get the date real quick though. I'll put it on the chat.
Okay. All right. So I think, let's see, we covered all these. We did the announcements. We did the committee reports. LAAS elections. Let's go over that very quickly here. Okay, everyone see the slide for the elections?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so take note. So all the nominations for new board members and secretary, president, vice president, treasurer, send your nominations in. Please send statements to your secretary.
I've sent mine in.
Candidate statement.
Yeah.
Didn't see that, so I didn't send it to candidate statement. I'll resend it. No, I know he got it. Okay, then in the December meeting, we'll tally up the votes and find out who the next board is. There was something that Spencer sent out. Hold on a second.
Boy, we can see all your email.
Oh, I'm sharing that screen? Oh, great. Okay, I don't know. There was
Yeah.
something from Spencer that said something about he wanted to make a point here, and I can't remember what it was, but it had to do with this. But this is all the information. So I think that's all we need to do there.
Is the December 12th meeting show and tell as usual?
Yes.
We have no speaker, so that is correct. And how do we send something to you, Tim? How do we do that for the people who want to do something? How do we gather their info?
I think it goes through Spencer as usual.
Okay.
Because it's show and tell. It's not like a regular speaker. It's our member.
Right. Okay. All right, so the people who want to do a show and tell, I guess, contact Spencer with your request for a show and tell time. And then, last year, how many slots did we end up? Do we have like enough time for like 4 or 5 people? Or I guess I'll check with Spencer on that. Okay, I'll check with Spencer. Okay. Well, if there isn't anything else, if anything have anybody else, then I'll have Tim introduce us. I'm sorry?
Daryl, real quickly.
Yes.
The date is in Malibu. It's from 6 to 8. There is a, they can contact Evan. There's information from Evan on that for the outreach for November 18th.
November 18th?
Yes.
Okay, so that's very soon. All right, good. Okay, also, anyone who wants
What about the door prize link? You can
door prize link is there. I'll put it in again once we start the lecture.
Okay, I
Drop
didn't
it in
see
a couple of times. It's there early on. I can do it again.
Yeah. Okay.
Tim, I just sent you a chat. Tim, I just sent you a chat.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I dropped it in there again right now. So the door prize link is there. Okay, we got the date. So then, Tim, you want to introduce John? He's been here this whole time. John, thank you for sitting and listening to all of our stuff.
No problem.
Okay. Tim?
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce John?
Oh, you want me to introduce John? Well, hey, cool.
Did you not get him to come and talk to us?
Okay, I can handle that.
All right.
John is currently the interim secretary for the Alliance for Historic Observatories, and he's been all over the place. When I was listening to him chat over the weekend at Flagstaff, I got the feeling he's done just about everything at one time or another, including like turn his truck upside down on a mountain road and a few other things. He's been all over the Antique Telescope Society for a long time, and that's really his big deal. So I'm sure that if John and Jack Eastman ever get together, they'll just bend each other's ears about which one of them has the best antique telescope. Maybe the best telescope win or something. I don't know. And of course, amongst his many other adventures is the one he's going to talk to us about tonight, which is wintering over in Antarctica. And yeah, I saw you were all posting your how cold it got, and I said it got down to 14 degrees in Flagstaff. Well, in Antarctica, it gets like 120 degrees below zero in the winter. So, you don't go out in your t-shirt and that kind of weather. And John will tell us all about it. So John, you're on.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Let's see, I'm just gonna show something before I start. I thank you very much, everybody, for the privilege of letting me share with you tonight. I want to especially welcome the many new members I noticed were introducing themselves to your organization. That's really great. I am really just another grown-up amateur astronomer. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I remember beginning to observe when I was just a little kid, even back in the 1960s. I was learning the constellations and looking at the sky with my dad's binoculars, and this is just an interest that I have stuck with the rest of my life as best I could. I became an instrumentation engineer and worked at a lot of different observatories, including Mount Wilson. I lived and worked up at Mount Wilson in the 1980s as an observer with the 60-inch. That was just one of my lucky breaks. I have had a lot of lucky breaks over the years, having a chance to get involved in various things. And it is true that I'm especially interested in history of astronomy now. And I'm going to hold up a book, if you can, I guess I'm hoping you can see my screen, and I will switch to a full screen in just a second, but I was very proud to contribute to this book recently published by Griffith Observatory, Public Astronomy Los Angeles style. A good number of authors contributed the different chapters here, and the proceeds are going to the Griffith Observatory Foundation if you buy a copy. But boy, you folks there in LA have a very, very rich astronomical history. And this is a nice coffee table book. I love the way it's been designed and illustrated. So I hope if you haven't seen it yet, you shall, and that you enjoy it. So I guess, though, I should try to connect to a share screen, right? And let's see here.
You're ready to go. I unshared, so you should be all right.
Yeah. And now I think I'll try to make this thing full screen here. How the heck do I do that? You are sharing screen, and I make this full screen somehow.
Go to the top, it's right next to the left of the X button, the red X button. Keep up to your right, up to the very top right. Keep going to your right.
I'm sorry to be such a goof. To the X, to the top right.
Right to the left of the X.
To the color red, the X in the color red button to the left of that.
To the left of that. You were, it's very small.
You see the red X on the top right of the Center for Astrophysical Research? There's a red.
I think it's sharing a window and doesn't see it because it's behind another window.
Oh, perhaps. I'm sorry to be a goof with this. Because I'm not seeing exactly what.
There you go.
Well, we can see what.
Yeah. There we go.
Here it
is. Yeah.
That still is a little goofy, isn't it?
Not quite.
Let me just try this.
We can all see it.
That's fine so far.
Fine.
You're full screen now.
Oh, I am?
I think so.
This is good.
I'm having some trouble advancing my presentation. Sorry for this.
You're showing up a JPEG from your Picasa application.
You should probably close this.
Okay.
Try it again.
Okay.
Make sure you share the window with the presentation.
Closer. Are you just showing us individual pictures?
Yeah. I apologize.
When you hit that screen share, share the entire desktop, not just a window.
Yeah. It's just getting.
Maybe if you put the zoom in the background and just bring your desktop up to where only you can see it, and then it'll show full screen.
Yeah.
You need to put the zoom minus the zoom so it goes away.
Oh.
Minimize it.
Take your time, John.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. Don't worry.
No worries.
Please move this window away from the shared applications, it says.
So when you share, don't share application, share your screen.
Okay. I'm afraid this thing is, oh, maybe it's this darn thing down here. It says as though my screen is getting locked up. Stop share. And that is absolutely screwy.
So now you
Try before you share your screen, try and
Yes.
display what you want to display on your computer full screen. Then flop screens back to Zoom and share your screen. That worked for me.
and when you share, just share the screen, don't share the application.
Yeah, the desktop.
I'm gonna, let's see. I'm gonna hit share screen now. Well, I'll tell you what, do you see this? That's, just a sec. You see, oh.
That looks good right there. It did look good.
Try it once more. I've never had this much difficulty before.
Because of Elon Musk.
Yeah, something. Thought he was our hero.
I'm sure your content is worth the wait.
Share screen.
I mean, otherwise send it to somebody so somebody else can share.
Can you see this Center for Astrophysical Research in Antarctica?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's just try this. It's better than nothing. And I'll see there.
Just go to the next slide.
Yeah, let me just try this. Oh goodness.
Go to your next slide.
That's what I'm trying.
You lost the share.
Something is really goofing up here. I've never had this difficulty before.
Can you email it to Daryl?
It's a folder of images. And
Okay, so just get back up to the first image. We're doing okay. Get back to the first one that you were there before. And then just advance to the next one on that screen. There's controls at the bottom when you move your mouse down to the bottom. So
Okay,
share that screen again. Share that screen again. With the logo.
No, I'm
Same thing you did before. The same thing you did before. Just get back to that same screen.
I've lost my the Zoom window. Let me hold on.
We can see you, so we haven't lost you.
Yeah. What the hell is this? I'm afraid that I'm not even seeing the Zoom window anymore.
Are you operating on Windows or Mac?
Windows.
Then along the bottom, you should see your taskbar. It should be down there someplace. It'll look like a very simplified camera.
Yeah.
Basically a rectangle with a triangle. And that would be the Zoom window.
Or just do Command Tab and tap through the applications?
Yeah,
You
that's
could
the
also,
other way.
you could also try double clicking on your screen. Maybe you are in full screen, which is why you can't see anything else. Double click anywhere on your screen.
You are coming through on Zoom, which means your application is up and running. All you have to do is find it on the taskbar, which is either at the left side, the right side, or the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, I'm looking at the taskbar. Part of the problem is I don't happen to have my reading glasses, and my taskbar is really tiny. I'm wondering if I should log out and try logging back in again, just from start. I'm sorry to be so moronic on this.
John, can you see your Picasso screen? Or your
Pardon me?
Picasso? Can you see your Picasso tab and open it again? That's where your pictures are.
Yes.
Can you open that again?
You mean along the taskbar at the bottom? Should be there.
And it'll be in green. It'll say share screen.
Yeah, I'm
not.
not.
Right where,
I'm so befuddled here. I think I'm gonna try to quit this and just log in again. As silly as that is, because I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing what I should. It's very
A reboot
peculiar.
is never a bad idea.
Yeah. Hold on.
John, if you do that, you might want to restart your computer real quick and come back.
Yeah. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do that, folks. I actually have a fair bit of experience doing this, but I've simply never had quite such a goof up with this. So
Also, if you have
And there he goes.
if you have the in-meeting file transfer enabled in Zoom, he's able to actually through the chat send the files. But you
he's
have to.
offline right now. He's
Well,
offline.
if he can do that, I can pull him up and show him.
No, that's what I'm saying, Daryl. You have to do it because you're the host. So if that is the
I'm not the host.
No, it's Zoli. Zoli is the host tonight.
Whoever is the host.
Yeah, Zoli would have control.
Zoli's hosting.
It sounds like his computer lost track of stuff. So probably rebooting it will cure the problem.
That was why I recommended rebooting. It sounded, I heard a ding in the background that made it sound like the application locked up, not the Zoom application, but the one he was trying to use to show the pictures. And by rebooting, at least he starts fresh.
Aren't modern computers wonderful? I remember C64s.
David,
Clearly,
just remember that we can pick on modern
the gods
computers,
are angry.
but 20 years ago, we couldn't have this meeting. 10 years ago, we couldn't have this meeting.
Aren't modern computers wonderful?
We're not having this meeting right now.
Well, there is that.
Just so everybody knows, we can't give out any dates yet, but and we can't give out specifics, but we tell you that things are looking good for next year to have star parties at Griffith Observatory for everybody again. Things are looking real good. So we'll get to you on that. Okay.
That's awesome news.
Yeah, I figured you want to hear that.
Well, there might be two coming up before the end of this.
Yeah, we'll get the
year.
dates out to everybody.
Yeah,
We'll get the dates out.
No, before the end of this year. Not next.
Yes, I know that. Tim will get. I know. Tim will get us out. Tim will get the.
Yeah,
information
there
to
are
us.
two in December, one restricted and one not.
But we are working on it. Just want to let you guys know why we're holding on here.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome aboard, George, and all the other people.
It looks like that his presentation is simple photos. They're just
Yes,
going to go from one to the next. So if we can just get him back to the screen that he was on, which is a Picasa photo viewer, which is what he was using, which I'm familiar with. If he moves the mouse down to the bottom of the screen, he'll see the controls to move to the next picture. So if we can get him there, we can get this going.
I think his app locked up because the minute he tried to change to a second picture, he ended up with a bad data screen on top of the first image instead of.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, that's why the reboot is probably a good idea.
Yeah, I know a couple of people mentioned in the chat, we wouldn't mind listening to him without pictures too, if it doesn't work out.
Right, he could just start doing the lecture. And yes, we're working on getting, when he gets back up on, if it doesn't get going, we'll try getting the pictures sent to Zolly, who can then share screen and show them while he talks.
Jimmy, are you ready to lecture tonight?
Do we know? I'm always ready to lecture.
I know you are.
Question, do we know when we can have face-to-face meetings at the planetarium again?
We don't know yet. We need to do some negotiating with the Griffith Observatory people because we need the capability to live stream our meetings from there. They have that capability. We need the capability to bring in remote speakers, and they have that capability, but they don't necessarily have a person available for our meetings to take advantage of that capability. And so we have to have some discussions, but surely at some time, hopefully early next year, we'll be able to do that.
You could talk to Rick Davis at Riverside Astro, because they're doing it right now, both in person and via Zoom.
Yeah, but the problem is that when we hold our meetings at Griffith.
John's back.
I'm back.
John's back.
Welcome back.
My confidence is shaken, but shall we try this again, folks?
Sure.
Go for it,
Here
John.
we go.
Thank you.
Now, you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Yes,
if I can
sir.
advance the darn thing, let's try this. And of course, it is not
If
advancing.
you move your mouse down to the bottom of the screen.
Say that again?
Move your mouse down toward the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
Do you not have controls down there when you move it down there?
If it doesn't appear,
Let's
go
just try
to
something here.
right there, right there.
There, got it. I got it. The controls are at the top. Anyway, let me begin. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm a nuts and bolts and optics guy. I am a proud computer moron. Let me describe then what has become a historical presentation. Because I had the opportunity working for University of Chicago, headquartered at Yerkes Observatory in Wisconsin, to winter over as part of the Center for Astrophysical Research in Antarctica back in 1994. So that was a long time ago already, but let me, in these slides, I want to try to take you there and quickly go through what a winter was like. And there was discussion about how cold it gets in Antarctica. At South Pole Station in 94, it got as cold as negative 106.6 Fahrenheit. It wasn't always that cold, and that is not including things like wind chill. That's just the raw temperature. It was very, very interesting and wonderfully adventurous to experience the completely otherworldly environment there. And so let's just get into it. So how do you get there? You fly to New Zealand in commercial airplanes. You get on something called an LC-130. C-130s are common enough, big military turboprop aircraft, but that LC-130 is modified in a special way to facilitate landing on the ice. And this is some scientist looking out one of the windows. There's not much in the way of windows in these cargo planes, but it takes 7.5 hours to fly from Christchurch, New Zealand, to McMurdo Base on the coast of Antarctica. And most all the United States operations are in science operations in Antarctica are headquartered out of McMurdo Base on the coast. And but before you roll in to McMurdo, or ski in more specifically, you fly over the Transantarctic Mountains near the coast and see spectacular glaciers like this over the mountains. And I'm going to keep on going, but show you the aircraft landed. And this is one of my glory shots from bygone days. There I am standing, trying to look cool. I hope we still have the connection. You can see me. And I remember getting this image and holding it up and admiring myself. And one of my friends was with me when I was first looking at it, and I handed the slide to him, and he said, "Briggs, at least maybe you could have buttoned your shirt straight." Okay, but the thing to, of course, seriously to notice is that there's skis there under the wheels. That's what the L in the LC-130 stands for, as I understand. The special modification that includes skis that allow these giant aircraft to land on snow and ice. But I'll keep going because we've got a long way to go. It's another 3 or 3.5 hours to fly from McMurdo Base to South Pole Station. And you take off, you go over some more of the Transantarctic Mountains for a little while, but before too long, you were looking down. It's looking like a frozen ocean, vast white expanse, flatter than Kansas, and you just see nothing but the white of the high Antarctic plateau below you and the blue sky above. But eventually, because you can step up and be beside the pilots for a little while, you can see as the aircraft approaches South Pole Station, a tiny, tiny black spot after 3.5 hours appearing on the horizon. That is just a tiny thing there in the middle of nowhere, and you ski in, and this is one of the aircraft landing on the snow runway. The altitude here is 9,301 feet above sea level, according to the sign as it was posted in 1994. And I'll keep going to try to be fast. So you tumble out of the airplane and you have extreme cold weather clothing on, and that's what I'm wearing there. And you scroll down towards the open door of the base, at least as it was back in 1994. Everything has changed now. The sign above the door says the United States welcomes you to the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station. And you kind of do a big gulp to yourself thinking, I mean, goodness, this is going to be my home for the next 11 months or year or so. What exactly am I getting into? So I arrived in very early January, but the anticipation is you're going to be there an entire year because it gets too cold for aircraft to take you back home once you really get into the depth of the winter over, as I shall explain. But let me show you a little bit about the environment. I happen to have a Nikon fisheye lens, I think it was like 8 or 9 millimeters. So you get literally 180 degree fields of view with this lens. And so that's actually me on the left and one of the other science technicians beside me on the right. And the geodesic dome is was an aluminum skin that was a windbreak to protect the buildings inside from blowing snow. The big white spot near the upper right was an open vent to allow ventilation. Let me explain how it was. The dome, as I recall, was 165 feet in diameter. And this fellow was Ed. He was our winter over chef. And he kind of joked with us as we were all getting acquainted in the winter over crew, which, by the way, was 27 people, as I recall. He said, well, previously, I was at the CIA, he said. And actually, CIA, for him, stood for Culinary Institute of America. And it turns out if you want to become a master chef and work for the Ritz-Carlton or something like that in New York City, where's the best place in the country to study to become such a chef? Culinary Institute of America. And there beside Ed, on the inside circumference of the big geodesic dome, those boxes, frozen food, profoundly frozen food, leftover food from previous winters went completely around the circumference. And Ed said to us later on in the year, he said, you know, I've done a calculation because I've got an inventory. You know, if they never came back for us, there'd be enough food here for us to eat for about 7 years, the way I've got it figured. And we all laughed, but of course the fact was, if they never came back from us, we would long before 7 years run out of heating fuel and we'd have frozen to death. Look how Ed is standing beside, on the ground before him, a tongue of snow. That snow has come down through a chimney-like aperture behind him. See the ladder behind him? That was one of the emergency escape towers. So if something bad happened inside the dome, we could, of course, climb out like a fire. We could climb out and get away from the fire, but then, of course, we'd be in the middle of the South Pole environment. So what good is it really going to do you? But let's go on. Okay, another outside view of this giant geodesic dome, which it was so iconic of South Pole in bygone decades. It has been completely replaced now, but still the experience is worth sharing even after these changes. This picture was taken from the top of something we called Skylab. It was a fairly tall tower. You can see the shadow of it there on the lower right. The tower had things like all-sky cameras for studying the aurora and ionospheric phenomena. And it was a nice, quiet place to go. Had a lot of nice big windows to look around and take a picture of the dome. But I'll keep going fast to just get through these slides. This was one of the buried gigantic archways. And I include it because of what it sheltered, these giant fuel bladders. If you can see my mouse, I hope you can see that there are these square structures being protected by this enclosure. And there's one here in the middle of the screen. And if you notice where my mouse is, you see I'm circling somebody right there. That's a person lying down on top of this like 25 or by 25 foot fuel bladder, like a gigantic waterbed, but it's full of aviation diesel fuel. And so what happens is over the course of the Antarctic summer, when about 140 LC-130 flights can go in and out of South Pole Station, each one comes in with a surplus of fuel, and a slight surplus, but enough so that they can download the surplus of fuel and still have enough to get home to McMurdo, but in so doing, refill these fuel bladders. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. And there were also some other ones that were segregated away so that if something bad happened here, we'd still have some fuel. This fuel was burned by a diesel electric generator, which provided the electricity, and the exhaust from the generator was pumped through a glycol loop, because of course diesel exhaust is quite hot, but some of that heat would be captured by the glycol loop, which would then be circulated around the base, for in radiators, like old-fashioned hot water radiators. But those were some of the technical details of how we simply survived there, mainly depending on diesel fuel. And by the way, there's another person right here walking away, because it was sort of like a sidewalk going down this thing, which was, must have been 200 or 300 feet long, and it wasn't the only one around the base. But I'll try to keep going. Eventually, the sun got lower to the horizon and the shadows got long. Some of the newer buildings were built kind of like oil rigs, in that they were up on stilts as though they were above the ocean, like oil drilling platforms. The idea was to let blowing snow pass freely underneath the newer buildings, because the problem with the big iconic dome was that it blowing, and any other structure directly on the snow, blowing snow would tend to bury your structure or your experiment or your telescope. And so folks were learning to put new experiments up on stilts. Let's continue. Finally, with the passage of weeks and really a month or two, around, what would it be? Around, around March 21st, right? The sun is moving slowly northward in the sky, changing declination and crossing the celestial equator. And the celestial equator defines our apparent horizon from one of the Earth's poles. So I was hoping to see sunset, because the sun appears to graze along the horizon from right to left as the Earth turns from South Pole, and only ever so slowly pass lower and lower below the horizon, only because of its changing north-south celestial coordinate declination. Well, anyway, we didn't get to see that because a storm came, and that was the end of the sun. The reason I was so keen to see sunset against a clear horizon is that the green flash phenomenon, which some of you, I'm sure, know all about, the green flash phenomenon can last for like 30 or 40 minutes on a good sunset at South Pole, when the top limb of the sun is just grazing the horizon, and the atmospheric dispersion allows the green color to come through because the sun is like a rainbow because of the Earth's atmosphere. I know I need to move fast. I can't belabor these details. But anyway, I did not get to see the incredibly special natural phenomenon of green flash from South Pole, but the sun went away. A storm ensued for several days, but when it cleared, at least we were rewarded with a beautiful full moon, or nearly full moon, and blue sky. And here you see that building up on stilts, no shadows now. With the sun gone, the sun isn't going to come back for 6 months. This was our main observatory facility back in 1994, and I'll show you more of it as we continue with the slides. But let's go back to show a little bit about what it was like near the big dome where we actually lived. The dome was a full kilometer away from the observatory building, and we had to walk back and forth. By now, after sunset, they are no longer using big tractors to plow the blowing snow away from that entrance door. So it was, you'd have to climb up and out. They kept it just plowed enough to allow human access through the gigantic door. But let's take a look around. There was one day when it was definitely below -100 Fahrenheit. And I thought I ought to go out on a day and walk around the dome and just take pictures while we still had some lingering twilight of what it was like around the dome when it was -100. And see the red hatch there on top of that structure? That is the chimney-like structure that the chef Ed was standing beside earlier. There's a hatch at the top that is often left open, and that's how the blowing snow had come down through the chimney, and it had accumulated in that tongue that you saw at Ed's feet. Anyway, quite an amazing place to be, but it's -100. But it's surprising how well one can function even in the extreme cold, because the extreme weather clothing is so wonderful. You really can function for extended periods of time outdoors, given the clothing that they have developed over the years. But what is it like to go outside after more weeks? The sun just doesn't just instantly disappear. The twilight lingers a long time, but finally it's below greater than 18 degrees below the horizon, which is the definition of night, astronomical night. And so you go back to the big front door, which has mainly been closed in by plywood to just keep the wind out, open a smaller human-sized door and step outside. And this is what it was like from the bottom of that crater-like situation. You climb up and out towards the main level of the horizon, and it kind of looked like this. This was actually a telescope. It was not part of our experiments. This was a gamma ray telescope looking for Cherenkov radiation in the sky that had been set up by a group from University of Wisconsin. And so when gamma rays come in through the upper atmosphere of highly energetic particles and they interact with air, they can release a blue flash called Cherenkov radiation. These were light buckets with photomultiplier tubes trying to detect those flashes. And I won't go on and on about this, but because it's more interesting to point out the constellations. Most folks like to learn the constellations as amateur astronomers, and I hope some of you recognize it's Canis Major, the big dog, and that's Sirius. But of course, it's completely upside down compared to how we are accustomed to seeing it, because that's the way the sky looks from South Pole. We only see the southern hemisphere sky because our horizon, like I said before, is the celestial equator, and all you are seeing are the southern stars. Now, this via the Zoom, it's kind of lousy, but if you look right down in here through the framework of the Cherenkov telescope, there's a tiny pink glow here and maybe another star. Well, this is actually the Sword of Orion, and the pink is the Great Nebula, the glowing hydrogen in the Sword of Orion. Because if you remember, the Belt of Orion constellation is right on the celestial equator, and his legs and his knees and his sword and the Great Orion Nebula is hanging in the southern sky. It was, it's about -5 degrees declination, something like that. Notice the cloud layer here. That's blowing snow, blowing ice crystals. So whether or not you could see the Orion Nebula when you went outside was a good measure of how thick the layer of blowing ice crystals was. But let's go on and see other things. Occasionally, the aurora would rain down beautifully upon the station like this. You can see now the dark silhouette of the dome. There was that skylight that I said was with the wide angle lens and the distortion. It looked like it was off to the side of the top of the dome, but actually that skylight was right at the top and perpetually open to let diesel fumes and human humidity, kitchen humidity and such things out. That's why the light is coming through here. It's actually illuminating an American flag blowing there on top of the big dome. But that's what that is. This is the exhaust from the diesel electric power plant with something like a street light over here illuminating it, but beautiful aurora. And I wish I could identify the southern stars there, but we've got some other shots, and I'm not sure what constellations those are. I should refresh my memory and work that out. But let's go on here. It's more obviously we're looking at the heart of the Milky Way, even though there's this big red light, but it's it's Scorpius, the scorpion. There's Antares, and here's the tail of the scorpion and the stingers and the stars that represent the claws going out away from bright star Antares at the head of the scorpion. But of course, the entire constellation is upside down from as we are familiar with it in the northern sky. And here is the teapot of Sagittarius, the handle and the spout and the steam coming off the spout. And it's all delightfully upside down. And here's a Stellafane 8. Nothing is much more fun than trying to use a frosted over Stellafane 8 at South Pole when it's about -100. That's not where our science was. I'll show you more about science in a second. But the tower with the red light was actually a meteorological tower, and I was responsible for climbing it. So this is a self-portrait of me and my Freddy Krueger mask. I had only been outside maybe 3 or 4 minutes before snapping this picture with my film camera, because I had a film camera, not digital, back in '94. In only a few minutes, the one's breath and the humidity coming out of our bodies, creating a cloud of humidity around your face, would make enough humidity, as is present as I speak right now. But at South Pole, the humidity would freeze on your eyelashes and literally your eyebrows. And it was a little uncomfortable, but you could live with it. But it was dramatic. Why was I climbing this tower? It's because we were interested in measuring seeing, astronomical seeing, air turbulence. And so we had very sensitive thermometers, really microthermal sensors going up this tower. And it was my job to keep them clean. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Let's go with that again there. To keep them clean and working, and the data measuring the rapidly changing temperature variations could be translated into a measurement of image quality, or as astronomers refer to it as seeing. A rather forlorn Stellafane 8 that had been shipped down there mainly for fun. But what we learned is we could use acetone to clean frost off the corrector plate, surprisingly effectively, even outdoors in the cold. But interestingly, although the air is amazingly dry at South Pole, nevertheless, sometimes because of the extreme cold, it would be 100% humidity, relative humidity. In other words, frost would form. And even though the air was incredibly dry, and so it was that kind of frost coming right out of the air that would fog over optics, and we had to learn to deal with it, as I'll show. Back at the main lab building, which was really built for radio astronomy, but initially here, we were somewhat prematurely using this lab for infrared experiments. Up on top, let's see what I have next. We had this. We had built this 24-inch F10 Cassegrain. It was called, at University of Chicago, called Spirex, for South Pole Infrared Explorer. And so this is Joe Spang, who has actually operated that gamma ray telescope for University of Wisconsin. But he helped us because back in '94, if you remember, there was a famous comet Shoemaker-Levy 9, that crashed into Jupiter in July. Now, July was right in the middle of our South Pole night. And so we observed Jupiter with this infrared telescope, and it was fairly intensive because the comet had fragmented into what was it? Something like 10 or 12 fragments that collided with Jupiter over the course of 5 or 6 days. So we were really using this telescope intensively to monitor Jupiter. And it was like a great big framed tent baby buggy-like cover that would fold down and expose the telescope. The very large infrared camera is actually facing away from us. This was really a folded Cassegrain, in a sense, like the 60-inch at Mount Wilson. You could rotate the tertiary mirror to an eyepiece coming out towards us, but most of the time the focus was going into a large infrared instrument that's facing away from us. And so this sort of looks like a hazy daytime shot, but this is at night. There's moonlight, and these cloud bands in the sky are actually bands of glowing aurora. But we were observing in wavelengths where the aurora did not bother us too much. So this dramatizes the view of Jupiter in the near infrared. Around the wavelength we were exploring was around 2.3 microns, where extreme red, as seen by the human eye, is about 7,000 angstroms, or about 0.7 microns. So in a sense, this was like 3 times farther red than the limit of human vision, would maybe be one way to describe it. But in any case, here's the disk of Jupiter, interestingly glowing very faintly in this infrared wavelength. But the 2 of the Galilean moons of Jupiter are actually glowing quite brightly. But something curious there was a glow on the disk of Jupiter, and is labeled G. Well, we knew that fragment H was predicted, that these impacts were predicted in time with a standard deviation and error of about 3 minutes. So we would get the telescope up and running every 12 hours or so when the fragments were coming in, and start taking a lot of pictures as fast as we could download them, watching for the next impact. And sure enough, right on schedule, something began to happen. And suddenly, very unambiguously, fragment H had hit. And before you knew it, the brightness was so great, I imagine it might have been overexposing our detector. And then slowly, over the course of time, the energy of the impact, comparable, I think, to something like an atomic bomb, would fade away. And a graduate student at University of Chicago studied all of this data and made a PhD thesis out of our observations of comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 and Jupiter. That was not the goal of building the telescope. The goal of the telescope was to measure by observation how dark was the sky at these near infrared wavelengths. It was predicted that the sky would be unusually and wonderfully dark at those wavelengths because the air is so dry and the environment is so cold. Therefore, there was hardly any water vapor in the air, and it's water vapor that is your enemy for sky glow at infrared and also at certain microwave wavelengths. And we certainly confirmed how dark the sky was in the near infrared and in microwave. Here is our winter over physician, Kerry Vigue, before he was going to go outside and do something interesting. And here is Kerry about 30 minutes later, having come back in again. Talk about humidity freezing all around your face. Notice the top of his camera, which was plastic, is just broken right off. Plastic got incredibly brittle at these cold temperatures. There were many practical difficulties we would learn about with the brittle. You have to use Teflon insulation for all your electronics and all kinds of things like that because of the extremely cold temperatures. I was in a team of 3 people from Center for Astrophysical Research in Antarctica. And one of my team members, John Kovac, who's now a professor at Harvard. He was just a young guy, was a mathematics major, but he was very hands-on and went on to become an experimental astrophysicist specializing in microwave observations and microwave instrumentation. So basically, he was running the radio telescope. And this was overwhelmingly the most complicated experiment that anybody had ever before wintered over at South Pole Station. And inside the laboratory, this big silver thing is actually the microwave detector that goes on the focus of the radio telescope. And he's got it pointed down, and the blue disc here is actually a pool of liquid nitrogen on the floor. He's using the liquid nitrogen as a calibration source for this apparatus. And here, our other teammate, Hien, Dr. Hien they were looking at the tests, and John is smiling because he had struggled for months trying to make this thing work in the severe environment. And when the shot was taken, actually near the end of the winter over, well, it was finally beginning to work after many modifications that he had made to it experimentally over the winter. So the apparatus was carried again back out to the radio telescope, which was just another piece of apparatus we had there. This big structure looks like some kind of dish. That's where the radio telescope lived, but this was not actually the radio telescope. This is what it was like up inside this thing. It was a sky shield with aluminum on the inside. The radio telescope was down there in the middle of it. It's hardly recognizable as a typical radio telescope, but that's John down there beside it on his knees working on the mounting. It was an L-azimuth mounting at first impression, but see, any L-azimuth is equatorial from South Pole. I've climbed up a ladder to be able to photograph down, look on the whole scene. And John spent many, many hours trying to make this thing work. And there's a close-up of him, sort of a, what's the phrase, Rube Goldberg sort of deal. But these were very pioneering days for radio astronomy at South Pole, and John made it work. But it had taken all winter, and already the twilight was returning. The sun was moving back to the southern sky. And I am now going to take you through, compressing time tremendously through all this, the return of light over days and weeks, because it changes slowly. But our dark skies were over. And the moon and Jupiter, I think it was, as the light returned. And finally, one time, the moon aligned perfectly with Jupiter from South Pole. It kind of reminded me of some kind of Stanley Kubrick moment. What a place to be. And unfortunately, it was cloudy again for sunrise. And so I didn't see an amazing green flash at sunrise either, but it was nice to have light back and long, long shadows. Just a few more slides. Finally, the first plane returns, and everybody comes out to watch that plane return. And Janet Phillips was our station science manager, and she had the privilege, actually, the station manager. She was manager of the whole winter over operation. And the far, let's see, if you see my mouse, way over here behind here on the horizon, that's actually the astronomy site where some of those pictures were taken. And this sign right here with a single American flag, the white sign with the American flag to its upper left there, there was a geodetic marker right there. That was actually the real location of the South Pole, at least in 1994. All this ice here is moving, so it has to be remarked every year as the whole high Antarctic ice plateau is shifting relative to the Earth. But that's the South Pole. Anyway, Janet had the privilege of parking the first plane with this choreography of hand signals. What an emotional moment it is for us to see the first plane return. Because on one hand, man, you're burned out, you kind of got cabin fever, you were eager to get out of there. But on the other hand, you have felt very, very special being there. It's such a unique experience. You have bonded with this unique spot on the world that offers a view of the sky and the stars that are unique to you. And now you're going to be giving it up. And you're giving up the friendships you have formed with your teammates there. So it's an interesting, bittersweet, and complex emotional experience when that plane lumbers up. But boy, does it lumber up dramatically. But with that signal right there, Janet is indicating to the pilots that they are perfectly positioned. They can feather their props, and she thus symbolizes the end of the 1994 winter rover that lasted about 11 months. And the new crew comes out of the plane to greet the old crew, and it's hugs and kisses all around. And in a very brief and compressed way, I've tried to share a little bit, emphasizing the human experience and adventure of what South Pole is all about. The very interesting and diverse science, of course, continues there. And I hardly had a chance to touch upon the science in the course of this presentation, but thank you very much for your attention. And I apologize for struggling with Zoom. Don't we love computers, but wouldn't it just be nice to take a hammer to them sometime? Anyway, I'll stifle myself, and maybe there's time for a few questions or whatever you want to do.
That was wonderful, John. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And we do have time for questions. We have plenty of time. We can take questions for 10, 15 minutes if we want to.
There's a million and one things, of course. This is actually a significantly edited version of the way I usually describe South Pole. I usually show 80 slides. I think we showed 45 slides because I knew we had sort of a tight window tonight. And when I am reminded of all the anecdotes that I can share, this is more like a feature movie, okay? You know, an hour and a half. And I knew we didn't have time for that. But I think I saw a gentleman, maybe it was Terry, raising his hand with a question. So please shoot.
Sure, let's start with the questions. Go ahead.
George has his hand up.
Oh, it's just a.
Wow, I'm like blown away by your presentation. I was wondering, is there a place where we can watch your full presentation?
Yeah. I've given this presentation hundreds of times since '94, and of course now in the Zoom era, it has been recorded, but I'm a little embarrassed that I can't point you to a specific YouTube or something like that. But I tell you what, Tim in your group is among my friends. I expect I've actually met quite a few of your members over the years because I used to go to Riverside Telescope Makers Convention, you know, all this kind of stuff. But I am planning to finally make a PowerPoint with the recorded audio of my favorite 80 slides and put it and record it with good fidelity on one of these sites, if not YouTube. What's that other one that begins with V? VE, whatever it is, Vimeo or something like that.
Yeah,
One of
Vimeo.
my other, yeah, something like that. But what I ought to do is when I'm really meaning to finally getting around to do that soon and put it out there so people can watch it. And by means of friends like Tim, mutual friends, I can call your attention to when a good version of this is available, because it's getting to the point I want to share it with as many people interested as I can. Obviously, it's a subject that's a lot of fun to talk about.
Thank you. I absolutely look forward to it.
Yes, Terry, go ahead.
How
Sure.
tough was it psychologically to be down there, and were there any how did you handle it? How did you get into any problems with people, or can you tell us a little about that?
Well, I killed 2 people, but of course there's no law down there. No, I'm teasing you terribly. I'm being naughty. No, I'm glad you brought this up, because of course part of what I talk about in a longer presentation is when we hear nowadays, we were kidding around about Mr. Musk earlier as I fumbled with Zoom, Elon isn't he one of the people advocating so passionately for humanity to move on to Mars and establish roots there? And of course that seems like a beautiful thing to argue for, but I having wintered over at South Pole, I can predict what's going to happen to lucky people who have a chance to visit Mars. They're going to get to Mars, and there's one thing they're all going to want to do not too long after they get to Mars, and that's get home to Earth. And there are very interesting psychological consequences from being cooped up in a station like this, and they have studied it. In fact, when that plane arrived, one of the first people off of that plane is the United States Navy psychiatrist. And it was a lady in '94, and she was very charming, and she interviewed every one of us. And she gave us, but via the interview, essentially a test, which was a test by discussion that can put a number on it, a single number that quantifies your state of depression. It's like establishing the Hubble constant, okay? Single number. And but when we joke all through the winter, because we begin to feel toasty. And what the jargon toasty at South Pole is, of course, referring to how burned out do you feel. And so it's analogous to cabin fever or seasonal affect disorder or any of these things. Now, fortunately, our year, we had, in terms of our relations with each other, I believe, an unusually harmonious and happy year. We really got along well. And I think a lot of that has to do with the wisdom of the lady Janet Phillips, whose responsibility it was to hire most of the 27 people who wintered over. I think she had a lot of influence picking and choosing. She didn't get to choose the science staff because they came from the various science organizations. But to function and stay alive at South Pole, all manner of trades and skills, from electricians to carpenters to diesel mechanics, 2 of them, the cook, a physician, and it goes on and on. So it's a broad spectrum of skills. And she hired really nice people, and we had a lot of laughs. Nobody was considered sillier than I was. But I was popular, and I knew, well, we had a lot of laughs, and but the psychological consequences just being stuck in a place. There it's interesting. So people studying like submarine duty, that's why she was a Navy psychiatrist. I think they understand everything about this nowadays, but they nevertheless, they seize the opportunity to interview everybody. They worry quite a bit about alcoholism. There's a lot of booze, recreational booze, available at South Pole. And so each station management has to decide how to handle it. We were very loose and casual with access to alcohol, but we didn't have any alcoholics, but we still certainly threw some good parties, man. And I could go on, but I should stifle myself and let somebody else bring something else up. But it's a fascinating topic in its own right. These very human consequences that will be very serious issues on very long-term space flights. It's hard because we had it so much better. I could go outside, I could walk around, I could walk a kilometer to the observatory. And when you're spamming a can on the way to Mars it's going to be much tougher. Who knows? Well, I see another hand up, so I'll
That's
say
Pablo.
maybe Pablo has. Yes, sir.
Hi, thanks. Great presentation. I loved it. It was
Thank
definitely worth the wait. Very, very good. I've been a ham radio operator for 48 years. I talked to in Antarctica a lot of times. Did you guys have a ham radio station there at the time? I know you didn't have the internet.
Oh, sure as heck we did. And this is another little part of the talk I edited out for speed because communications, at least in '94, could not be taken for granted at all. It was another aspect of the sort of interesting psychological trip. You really do feel pretty disconnected. We did have a ham station, and they always have a ham station, and many people facilitated phone patches that we could make to our loved ones back home. And we had, and they were very important. And back in '94, there was a particular lady, I think she was in oh man, I've forgotten her name now, but I think she was in Ohio. And we mainly dealt with her. And she was very, very dedicated to providing, what's a phone patch means? It means that you would use ham radio to get through to her, but then she would call anybody you wanted to in the United States, your wife, your girlfriend, or your mother, dad, whatever, and talk to them for a while, and you could go on at length. And of course, there's not much privacy because all kind of people can be listening in on it. But when you're at South Pole, you don't care about those things. So you've got enough privacy as it is just being there. And but yeah, it was very, very important. We had internet access. Well, as it was anyway, back in '94, maybe about 5 hours a day, because there was you'd think the government would have some elaborate link, to some geostationary satellite. We had about 5 hours access because there was some funky old sort of dying, a geosynchronous satellite that was drifting up and down relative to the equator, and only about 5 hours a day it would drift far enough in the southern hemisphere sky, as seen from South Pole, for us to be able to connect to it through the blowing ice crystals and stuff. And that allowed internet. But what was the internet? It was a slow email. It was really slow. And one day in the middle of the winter, our information technology guy, who was a real nice guy, he said, "Hey, John, come on, come into my lab. I want to show you something." And I went in there. He said, "Take a look at this." What the hell is that? It was like a graphic thing on the screen. It was sort of primitive, but I'd never seen anything quite like it before. He said to me, "John, this is what they call a web page." A web page. The first one. And we also, I know I'm going on and on, but you get me going on these anecdotes, and it's sort of the heart of this talk. One of the very exciting things we did, we had video cameras and we had frame grabbers, and when the link was good, we could establish a video contact. And this was like a big deal. Look at us now zooming, as pathetic as I was goofing it up before. But we set up some video conversations a few times with students, with reporters. And it was like a very big deal because that type of thing had hardly ever been done before, and maybe had never been done before from South Pole before when we did it. And so it was very interesting. And there was a lady, I can't resist inserting this. There was a lady television journalist that interviewed me and Joe Spang. He was that guy with a very dark beard, another young guy, just the two of us. But, you know, television journalists, they're very attractive people. And I got to admit, talking about the psychological, the circumstances and everything, there was something about talking to this lady via video from South Pole. She looked more beautiful than I was used to viewing anybody. And it was just a psychological artifact of the unusual circumstances, but I cannot resist mentioning that, trying to allude to the curious psychology of the situation. The interview all was very nice, but sort of unforgettable to me. And I don't remember her name, never seen her since. Anyway, I should let somebody else ask if you got something else.
Any other questions?
Maybe I've stifled you all.
Well, I'll ask one. If it's dead of night and it's 100 degrees below zero outside, and you got to walk a kilometer away to your astronomy station, how do you not get lost?
Yeah, good, darn good question, Tim. Interestingly, we would establish a walking trail across the snow that was actually pretty easy to follow. But further, we, as part of the station winterization activities, they put up rope lines on bamboo sticks with flags radiating out from that main geodesic dome to any place anybody would have business going. So you would walk beside the rope line, and even in an extreme wind event, what was an extreme wind at South Pole? About 35 miles an hour. But when it was blowing 35 miles an hour, and it happened to also be cold, according to the formula of wind chill, it would be as cold as negative 180 Fahrenheit. The curious thing is, when the wind is blowing, generally the temperature is much warmer, because when the wind is blowing hard, it's blowing in off the ocean and it's carrying relatively warm temperatures. So it took relatively still air to be extremely cold to break negative 100. And it wasn't always negative 100. Most of the time it was probably around negative 80 Fahrenheit. But it's very interesting. I know I'm digressing from your question, but I can't resist. It's very interesting and surprising when you acclimate to what it's like experiencing negative 100 or thereabouts. Negative 40 feels really warm. It's funny like that. There are phenomena that are quite different. But anyway, what was your question? Yeah, how did you walk it? The answer was surprisingly easily. It was adventurous and sometimes a little bit uncomfortable. And sometimes if you were getting burned out, I got to admit, sometimes you really didn't feel like doing it, but it was surprisingly practical. And that goes back to how well the extreme cold weather clothing has been engineered over the years. So At least those are a few words trying to describe it.
What were your sleeping quarters like? What was
Oh.
sort of privacy? What about your daily meal schedule? What time zone did you operate on, and that aspect of it?
We maintained the time zone of Christchurch, New Zealand, because certain administrative headquarters were right back there, and we would have other radio communications as propagation allowed with National Science Foundation as their office allowed in New Zealand. Meals were served on a regular schedule, though some of us who had the freedom to do so, typically people working on science projects, could ignore that schedule and adopt their own hours. And it was generally noticed that most people who had that freedom and a relatively poor discipline, you might say, would freewheel into something more like 26-hour days. In other words, continuously going in and out of phase with the business schedule of the base. It was interesting. That's what most of us commented, that the schedule that most people seem to adopt was longer than a typical 24-hour day. And it doesn't mean we were more productive or anything like that, but it was that just seemed to be how it went. And the meals were very, very good because Ed was a great chef, as I alluded to before. But it was interesting. One of the moments of particular disharmony in the whole year was when our two diesel mechanics decided that they actually were not interested in the more elaborate culinary efforts of Ed. And in fact, they had access to a lot of steaks and potatoes and things that they could sort of abscond with. They set up their own grill out in the diesel shop. And for about a month and a half, they ate almost nothing but meat and potatoes. This is the consequence, though, of something like that. Ed came to me and he said, "John, for heaven's sake, for God's sake, help me make up the menu. I don't mind cooking, but it's driving me nuts trying to decide what to cook." And he meant this real earnestly. It was really troubling him, the burden of deciding what to cook, because at that point, see, two guys had rejected what he was cooking, and it was bugging him. But in the burnout situation of a South Pole winter over, it had become psychologically very oppressive, the burden of choosing the menu. And I'm afraid I couldn't help him choose the menu, but I never forgot how earnestly he was appealing for help. And he got over it. And eventually the two diesel mechanics guys rejoined the rest of the group. But that was an interesting symptom of disharmony, but just the psychological pressures that come out in different ways for most everybody involved there. And stories like that are common.
Great. Okay. John, thank you so much. We need to do our raffle. Please feel free to look in the chat for the link.
Oh yeah.
Put your name in. You get to be in the raffle too.
Okay.
I'll put it in
again, folks. Thanks so much for your attention. It's a privilege to be with you. I apologize for my trouble, but I'm glad we got through it.
Great. Okay, so I'll give everyone a couple of minutes. Anyone who did not have a chance to sign up for the raffle can. I just posted the link again in the chat. You can go there, put your name and email. I see Alicia is here. How are you, Alicia?
Sorry, my buttons were like popping up like so many bubbles. I'm good.
It's okay. Hi, nice to hear from you.
Dear, for you too.
Okay, so we'll get I'll get the list of people in a moment and put it up on the spreadsheet, and I'll share. John, you'll need to stop sharing. I don't know if you did. I didn't look.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need to stop sharing. Here we go. There we go. That.
Okay, I think.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
We're good.
All right. Okay. John, that was very good. I can't imagine.
That was really good.
The, I don't know, such a strange environment to be in for so long.
It was very otherworldly, but I tell you, folks, I'm an easy touch for presentations. I love especially talking about history of astronomy. I'll be glad to rejoin you again sometime or meet with you in person. I'm 12 hours away. I'm in New Mexico, and I love getting back to Mount Wilson. With Tim, I do volunteer stuff up at Mount Wilson, and of course, well, that's something you all can look forward to there.
Were you able to put your name in, John? I didn't see it.
I didn't know how to do it. Is it something to do on chat?
Yeah.
In the chat, in the chat is a link to a page where you can put your name.
Okay.
If you look in the chat, you'll see a link to a form site.
Is it from Daryl?
Yes.
Oh, there, yeah.
Just click on it.
Yeah.
Put your name in there.
Okay.
Did it, submit it. There we go. Oh, the
Okay.
wonders of computer. I'd like to shoot them all.
Okay, let me go push this here. Okay, we got them now.
Were you sworn to secrecy about the Stargate that's located at the South Pole?
Oh yeah, no, and I didn't tell you how there's actually the Earth is hollow and there's this really neat aperture.
It's the entrance.
Is that where the chemtrails are fabricated?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And also, you didn't encounter any aliens from John Carpenter's The Thing?
Oh, yeah. When the last plane left, we declared a party day, the 27 of us, and we all went back in and we broke out the beer and we sat around and had a party and we watched both versions, the 1950s version and then John Carpenter's, which has got to be rated X for violence. It was fabulous, a wonderful way to start the winter over.
Do long beards freeze?
all kind of things freeze.
Well, that 1 year gave you a lifetime of stuff to talk about.
I'm afraid so.
Is there an Alien versus Predator at Antarctica movie now also? I think there is.
I think there's some new stuff that I haven't been able to keep up with at all. Oh my God, you brought some stuff. I gotta just say that none other than James Cameron, the movie director, visited South Pole Station for nearly a week as I was packing up to leave. And I spent quite a bit of time hanging out with James Cameron. And I know I gotta stifle myself, but we had some very amusing interactions. And this was before he did Titanic, but he had just done one of the Arnold movies. Oh gosh, one of the sort of where Arnold saves the world from the Florida Keys and stuff, but I'll stifle myself. But it was a lot of fun.
Okay, I am ready. Let me share screen here. And Alicia is ready. This screen 2. Okay. Okay, so everyone see the spreadsheet? Says drawing link at the top here?
Yep.
Yep, okay. So when I drop the names in from the list that I get from the form site, it gives me the first person. So Andy Sway is our first winner.
Yay.
And you want an Amazon gift card.
Hey,
And let's see if we find Andy. Where are you? There you are.
Oh,
Okay, Anna Rodriguez Lorenzo is our second winner. Anna, you here?
Number
yeah,
28.
she's a.
She said yay in chat.
Okay. You have that one, Alicia?
yes, I just wrote it down.
Anna Rodriguez.
Want a LAAS hat.
Hat coming your way. Okay. Next is Kevin G.
Kevin G.
Kevin G.
Kevin G won a Celestron observer's map of the moon.
Kevin, where's Kevin?
Number 3. Line number 3.
Where is he? Here he is.
Number
Wait.
2.
That's 3.
Didn't
Bill
have my
Taylor.
shoes up.
Hey, Phil, how are you? What'd Phil win, Alicia?
Red flashlight.
Flashlight.
All right, Phil.
Okay. Bill Taylor. Next is Chris Birnbaum.
Chris Birnbaum won a item from the LA store.
Number
Okay.
15.
So go to LAAS store and pick something. And okay, Chris, do we have one more?
No, that's it for this time.
That's it for today. Chris, you were last one. Okay, very cool. All the presents have been given. I'm stopping sharing.
Heavens.
And we are at 9:55, so we could actually end the meeting and then people can stay and chat for a little while. Zolly can leave this up and running. So
Hey,
thank you, everyone. Thank you, John. Thank you,
Hey,
everyone who came. Very nice. Thank you.